Hi there, welcome to Brianne Aldcroft's Constructivist Online Lesson Plan for ETEC 530. I'm doing a screencast because my site is password protected for student safety. I made the social network for English 10 as my final project in ETEC 532. During my research, I found lots of information and research that's been done on using wikis and blogs in the classroom, but there's virtually no information and research that's been done on using a social network in the classroom. And so this is a little bit of an intimidating project, and I wanted to do my lesson plan on the social network because I have so many questions that I'm struggling with still. Some of the questions I'm struggling with are, what are the affordances of my platform and how should I use them? How will I incorporate constructivism into my site? How will I manage students? How will I manage content? How will I incorporate online learning into the face-to-face classroom? Preparing this lesson has helped me answer some of these questions to some degree. The lesson plan that I've prepared is an introductory lesson for English 10s to poetry. To begin, we're going to be in the computer lab, and I'm going to hand out poetic devices to them that they will know from grades 8 and 9. I'll have them log in to the social network, and then I'm going to go over instructions with them. Instructions are kept in the class log. And we go to today's date, November 22nd. That's approximately when we're going to be doing this lesson. And there are 3 tasks that you can see here. Numbers 1 and 2 are going to be revealed immediately to students because they're related. However, task number 3, this is going to be hidden from them and revealed to them a little bit later. I don't want them to jump the gun too quickly, but it's going to be provided here just for the purposes of the screencast. So task number 1 asks student to go to the discussion page and under poetry, go to the introduction to poetry and then what is poetry anyway. Using the poetic device you received in class, write a definition of poetry in 5 to 8 lines. And then task number 2, comment on 3 other people's poems by identifying other poetic devices they have used and how their definition is similar to yours or how it is different from yours. Remember to spread the love. We all like to receive feedback on our contributions to our community of practice. Okay, so let's go and do those 2 tasks like students have been instructed. So students will already be familiar with the interface, and these steps will be second nature to them. It'll all make sense to them if you're a little bit confused. So here's where they need to be discussing. Here's the topic. So step 1, use the poetic device you got in class and create a poem that defines poetry in 5 to 8 lines. Under your poem, state what poetic device you used. So here's a sample poem that I have written. What is poetry? Poetry is life, it is love, it is hate, it is breath, it is death. I used hyperbole to over-exaggerate and sort of make fun of poetry. Whether I include a sample will depend on the group of students and how good they are with handling literature. Sometimes I like to provide it to give them a jump start to sort of build their confidence, but sometimes I don't like to give samples or examples because it gets them thinking too narrowly and it gets them, instead of exploring their own knowledge and their own interests, they just start trying to think about what it is I'm looking for and producing what they think I want rather than what works for them, what's already in their brains. So it depends on the group and whether I use an example or not. So here is the sample poem that a student would post, and a student who's logging in for the first time would go down here, post a reply, and they would post their sample poem here. And when they click on it, all of the different little tools pop up and they can type their poem. And when they're done, they can choose to have replies emailed to them or not. I always suggest not, just in case you get your email inbox flooded. And then step number 2 is students had to go and reply to poems. So I've got student tester here who replied to my poem, and he says, funny. Your poem also has rhyme at the end, and it's kind of a circle, how you start with life and end with death. And then student tester has his poem here. Poetry is like a storm, always blowing my mind. Poetry is like a foreign language. What did he just say? Poetry is like a maze. How do I get out of here? I use 3 similes to show that I think poetry is confusing. And here I am, commenting on his poem. Your poem is funny too, but you don't seem confused at all. Seems like you and poetry are good friends. Was that personification I just used there? So I only have 2 students in the social network right now, myself and a student tester. Of course, I am both of them. This is just a sample in order to show you what it might look like. So once students have commented on a minimum of 3 other people's poems, they can go back to the class log, and I will have updated the class log to include task number 3. So task number 3 asks them to read Billy Collins' poem, Introduction to Poetry. And then they have to write a paragraph that compares and contrasts their poem to his poem. How are they similar, different? How does he use poetic devices to convey his ideas about poetry? What is his purpose? And then they need to send this to me as a message to my inbox in Sprues. And of course, in the message, include a copy of your poem. And then I will give them feedback on their message using the Responding to Literature rubric that we've already created and used several times. And of course, they always have to remember to use English 10 writing conventions. And here, for your viewing pleasure, is Introduction to Poetry by Billy Collins. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. So once students have read this poem, and once they have composed their paragraph, which they can start in class, and then they can finish at home, it would be for homework, the evaluation cycle would start, and I would give them feedback on their paragraph and give them things that they need to improve on depending on the individual, and that would complete the constructivistic learning plan for my course for the Introduction to Poetry. Thank you very much for listening.